God is good, and with each day that passes, brings us a day closer to the launch of Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. The Developer Roundtable is out for September 2021, where Kilsin, Ben Dean, and Minus got together to talk about content releases for Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. I just have to say, first of all, that Ben Dean's humor was on point. Listen here as he explains different avenues they have looked into to make Pantheon content for.
So we've looked at places like TikTok. I think at one point we were looking to see if doing like a campaign on Imgur would be good. Patreon, just look into different chats and forums. We looked into OnlyFans for a little while too. Yeah, see, that's exactly why we didn't go for it, because...
Before we begin, I want to give a major shout out to the members of Napalm, the sponsors of this channel. I could not do this without you. Thanks to your monthly membership, I'm able to keep this channel running, covering MMOs, RPGs, and of course, puppets. If you are interested in becoming a member of this channel with exclusive perks, please click the join button down below for a list of options. And a very special shout out to the Lords of Napalm, Bounty Code, We Toke Bitcoins, and Jared Woodhouse. Thank you for your highest tier membership. Now they go on to talk about how they know what to show and when to show things as they are developed. It's tricky for the developers to be excited to show something new, but they oftentimes have to wait due to other things happening or stay focused on a big topic like a class reveal, for example. Also, because it's a smaller team, they often have to pace out the content, as everything that's developed isn't something exciting to show off, even if it is a big deal for the entire development process. They discuss that content creators playing the game for the community makes sense when they have the right things to show off, such as that time that myself, Basgorn, Theric, and Minus, before he was part of VR, showed off natural gameplay in a dungeon-type environment. The community as a whole really enjoyed watching that type of organic gameplay, but it has its time and place. Minus also brought up making content for release that is more shareable, smaller chunks instead of hour-long releases. I have to agree with this, obviously, as it's why I make my videos and update the community, like this video right here on Pantheon News. I do it so that you can learn all the juicy bits in a smaller time frame. So at the current point of development, most of their content is designed for fans of Pantheon, obviously, but they do have to continue to expand their audience, being crowdfunded and all. Let's hear what Ben Dean has to say about capturing new audiences here.
We don't want to go too quickly, so I may have spoken about this a little bit in the past too, but the general idea, you know, early on we started off with kind of the die-hard gamers that have, you know, tried some of the older MMOs and enjoyed them, but a couple things too. I mean, Pantheon is a very new game with some new ideas, but when we start to expand our audience, we have to think about that. So we start looking into other audiences. Now we don't, this is kind of tricky to say, because we need, at some point, obviously we're gonna get into mainstream audiences and introduce the game to them, obviously, at some point. But we don't want to get too mainstream too fast, because as you guys know, development takes a long time. It takes an even longer time when there's a small dev studio and when it's crowdfunded. So getting people on too early now just doesn't make any sense. We always knew that keeping people interested for years was going to be a challenge, and it has been, but it's also been really good. But there's a whole group of people out there who are playing games who don't have the kind of patience that our current crowd does. So anyway, we're taking sort of a tiered approach to it. We're slowly adding more mainstream audiences, particularly as we get into alpha. We're expanding our audiences. So that's happening now. We're not turning the dial up to 10 and shouting from the rooftops just yet, but we are looking into other areas where we can start talking a bit more about Pantheon and get more people interested.
So obviously what you might call the mainstream audiences I wouldn't have thought would be interested in the kind of game Pantheon is prior to 2019, when World of Warcraft Classic blew up and proved in so many ways that people crave that old school approach to MMO game design philosophies. I watched as people wanted that game to be harder, were confused because it wasn't as difficult as they remembered, and gamers across the internet complaining that insert new MMO here isn't difficult enough. The demand for an MMORPG that is challenging and rewarding, that has depth and personality, that focuses on exploration and littered with secrets and things to investigate, has dramatically risen. So yes, Pantheon could very well appeal to a much larger audience than we used to think. Of course, moving into alpha and beta, as stated, is going to widen that audience appeal, and as stated, the day will come that Visionary Realms will need to expand out their reach in order to attract the right kind of players and people. Next up, they talk about how to foster a non-toxic community, and I find this very interesting because a toxic community turns away new players. It places a reputation on the game itself, and it becomes, honestly, the face of the game. When I say World of Warcraft community, you know exactly what I mean. It brings faces or memes and thoughts straight to your mind, doesn't it? And for a project like Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, this is super important that they get it right. Let's hear what they have to say.
You have to set the tone early, and then you have to stick to your guns. Consistency is key. Consistency is key in a lot of things, but consistency is key there as well. That sometimes means that in some circles we may not be super popular, but gaming in general, let's face it, folks, gaming in general can be toxic, and often is. And we really, honestly, we need to protect our fans, and that again, that means consistency and set guidelines. And Kilsin, you're actually excellent at this.
I came from the community, so I know, what I liked and what I didn't like. I know what my fellow community members liked and didn't like, and now being part of the team and integrating that into, how I operate, I'm always looking over both sides of the fence. I'm always testing the waters and seeing what the team can provide, what the community's feeling. And I'm able to react quite quickly, which is lucky for me. But, I can't take all the credit for this. Like, the community are the ones that set the mood and lead by example. Which is something I strongly believe in. We put policies in place for toxic behavior, threats, and harassment, obviously, and would act on cases like that, case by case. But ultimately, it's you folks that create the community atmosphere and are the reason why our community is so awesome. All I do is, as a CM, is just encourage that kind of behavior and give gentle reminders or nudges back in the right direction when we kind of veer away from that. But only as needed. But for the most part, you're all an absolute pleasure to manage and are self-sustaining, which is fantastic for me and the team. And I think that's only going to help the community grow, into something bigger and better.
What Kilsin said here is key. The community sets the standard, the players, you, me. We are going to set the example for community behavior, and I think we have an absolutely wonderful community so far. The only thing I fear is what I call creeping elitism. I do often fear that months from launch, or even a couple of years from launch, that due to the increased difficulty of the game, due to the various systems and the general gameplay loop, that over time, our general community could grow that elite kind of attitude, which is super toxic for new players, asking common questions and trying to learn common mechanics and systems in a world that is brand new to them. It's something we absolutely will have to watch and keep in check. They go on to talk about guerrilla marketing, and that next week they're going to start some of that, whatever that means. Hopefully it involves bad singing and puppets. Minus went on to talk about how he would like to get breadcrumb type info dumps to content creators like myself, Basgrim, Disparate Worlds, and others to get the community excited and talking. Of course, I love this idea, but I do also see how this is exciting in different ways for fans of Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. I mean, I came on the scene talking about Pantheon for over 500 videos on the channel, and now over 7,000 people came and played my Dungeons & Dragons Choose Your Own Adventure campaign here on YouTube, which if you haven't played that, you definitely should. So that's a good example to show that the outreach of a content creator with the freedom to say whatever they want and to make content however they please is very powerful to the community. Kilsin talks about how word of mouth is Pantheon's largest tool in marketing and reaching new ears. The torch is in our hands as we move closer to alpha. The day is fast approaching that we will need to be out there across the internet like Pantheon soldiers spreading the word. Ben Dean talks about Pantheon being a heavily group-focused game. Let's listen to that real quick.
That being said, yes, there is definitely a motivation to play with other people, and we're going to continue adding those motivations to play with other people, because that's the kind of game that we're making. We want it to be a socially engaging game. But we're not going to force you to group. But let's just say, honestly, if you want to get the most out of the game, just try it out. Just try grouping. Don't be too dismissive of it. You'll be surprised at what can happen. As most of us know, almost all of us know that you'll always be surprised at the types of people that you can meet, and you can make friendships that last forever. And that's the kind of thing that we want to sort of encourage, and at least set the stage so people can have those opportunities. For me, I'm not a huge PvPer. I just generally stay away from PvP. I get too tense, and I just, I don't like PvP in general. However, back in the days when I was working as a gaming journalist, there's some MMO games that we had to review that were PvP focused. So I had to force myself to play these PvP games. But what I found was that most of my hesitation was sort of ill-founded. I thought I was going to have a terrible time, and in a lot of games I didn't. Like Warhammer Online, for example, I ended up loving that game, and it was almost all PvP. So yeah, I just encourage people to give it a try, not to dismiss it just because you think you're going to be forced to group. You're not going to be forced to group, but you will have a great time if you do.
Very well said. I couldn't agree more. If you want to play Pantheon a more slow way and take the route, just like many people did in EverQuest Classic, I would like to mention that option is there, and it's a viable thing. And there will be times that we all play by ourselves, all of us, either because we want to or because we are waiting on friends or guildies to log in or whatever the case. They go on to talk about everything happening right now in development, as well as the community coming together and learning each other and making friends now will all carry over to the game launching. So these relationships that are forming during development do matter. Ben Dean talks about once the game hits that milestone where it hits mass audiences, they have a time frame that is real and it's there where a lot of people will lose interest. Even within this community, I've seen so many people walk away. The patience part is very difficult, so they plan to not spend big marketing dollars until the game is in a state to be ready for launch within 6 months. They also talk about the popular class videos, and they do plan to do more of those, like the Fabulous Monk video we saw not too long ago. As they evolve the classes, other classes get tweaked as well, it's worth noting. Kilsin also touched on groups of people shouting things that harm the vision for Pantheon, and he ensures that they are grounded as a team on keeping Pantheon Rise of the Fallen true to the vision of the kind of MMO it is intended to be. Minus talks about the excitement and the discoveries that can be found in Pantheon and how that fosters a great community, which is so true. Those moments where you fight the meta and don't do the set strategy and you overcome odds, those are the moments you never forget. Those are the kind of moments that Pantheon is built to champion. Kilsin brings up community events. He says there will be GM events, which they've mentioned before, but he talks about how exciting community events are, where the players make their own type of events. This is something you can expect from my channel and my community. We will be doing at minimum a monthly event formed with my community. Ben talked about how some recent MMOs have launched with no marketing and didn't make it or are struggling to survive. Ben mentions that word of mouth might be their main force now, but VR understands that timing is key when releasing content out or anything that has mass appeal advertising. Can't be too soon to launch, and it can't be too far away. Ben Dean then on the spot made up that they are moving to a phase 2 of marketing. Once again, it was cryptic and I have no idea what it means, and he admitted he made it up on the spot, so take that for what you will. It was asked if they have a bring a friend type program upcoming for alpha or beta, and Ben Dean said they do, and maybe very soon. So pretty good bean drop from Ben Dean. Minus then reveals he was a Sega Genesis kid, and I already knew that because so was I, and us Genesis boys, we stick together. And that was pretty much what this was all about. And I tried to keep this under 10 minutes, it came pretty close, but guys, it was an excellent roundtable discussion about community, about marketing, about the future of Pantheon, and how they're envisioning it. And as insiders, anybody watching this video, if you made it this far, you're one of those where you deeply care about Pantheon Rise of the Fallen and Visionary Realms and this project and this MMO, and it's awesome to hear, and I'm very glad that Minus made on the team, as he is very good at those type of things, and he is great at content creation. So I'm super excited, knowing that we're going to get some really cool stuff in the future. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the video today, as I ran through the key points and key discussions from the most recent September 2021 Developer Roundtable. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing, especially if you enjoy Pantheon Rise and Fallen content. That is what I specialize in, but also I cover MMORPGs, especially the classic old school spirited types, and CRPGs, RPGs, all that kind of thing. And until next time, my friends, God bless and happy gaming.